Hello guys, we are Team 6 and we are going to talk about the Chapter 4. Chapter 4. The first question that we do for this new chapter is why some countries develop and others stay poor? The individual factors taken alone neither explain the patterns of development across the globe or over time, nor do they help us to predict the future development. 1 billion people are still trapped in extreme poverty, and just as medical doctors use a differential diagnosis to treat ill patients, development practitioners use a differential diagnosis to treat poor countries. The effective clinical economist should make a diagnosis that is accurate and effective for the conditions. History, geography, culture, and economic structure of the country in question. In the differential diagnosis of extreme poverty, we should consider the following checklist of economic disease, and I'm going to talk to you about the first three that are poverty trap, that is when the country is too poor to make investments, bad economic policies, and the financial insolvency. There are two main ways to break a poverty trap. The first one is the government can borrow, make critical investments, and count on with the future economic growth to repay debts. And the number two, foreign and international actors can provide temporary private or official development assistance to financial urgent needs, and then scale down assistance as growth occurs. These 7 factors do not apply equally to every country, and there is no single explanation of the persistence of the extreme poverty. Local circumstances, history, and context are all important. Through the physical environment can present a heavy burden on growth, geography is not a country's fate. Instead, it points to the critical investments that need to be undertaken. Energy is at the core of every economic activity, and the countries with abundant fossil fuels resources can more easily achieve economic growth. However, some resource-rich countries have badly mismanaged their natural resource wealth. They fall into a resource curse where large financial flows from resources become diverted into a massive corruption.
Oh, hey guys, I'm gonna keep talking about these elements of poverty, which is the next one is the fourth one. The fourth one is poverty could be the result of some aspects of physical geography, where every place has disadvantages and advantages of location, such as, for example, Australia. Australia has a diverse resources and good elements, but the disadvantage of this continent, for example, is that he's far away from our continents. And another example could be Africa. It's in a good spot area, but has many problems such climate, overpopulation, and disease can difficult everything for Africa to be competitive. Well, guys, the next one is the fifth one. The fifth one is that a country is suffering from a very poor governance, where there are factors such as corruption, inefficiency, incompetence, among others. An example of this is currently in Mexico, where poor government decisions has been attacking this poor country, when those type of decisions have been leading Mexico to be in a poorly positioned situation. This means that the government hasn't done a really good job with his decisions, and other factors. But this not only happens in Mexico, happens in a lot of places, a lot of countries all around the world. Well, guys, the sixth factor could be cultural barriers. Cultural barriers, as we know, there are cultural aspects that limit the growth of places. For example, women suffer from discrimination and they have less opportunities from get a job because they suffer from all the stereotypes about women. That's ridiculous, by the way. Such as working women in Mexico, they only represent 37% of the population that they got formal jobs. Now imagine that more women have formal jobs, that will help a lot on the economy to grow. In Mexico and in other parts from the world, they suffer from those type of stereotypes of treatment, and they don't help to overcome problems such as poverty. Alright, the next factor is the number 7, that is geopolitics. Geopolitics is all about friendship with other places. Try to be friendly with neighboring countries, get new alliances, keep the old ones, and more specific, be safe from problems all around the world. Because security is a key word here. For example, if your country is safe from problems, you can enjoy better trades with friendly economies or developing economies. An example of this is, of course, United States, because USA tries to get more alliances and allies to be competitive in this world, and you can enjoy possible benefits in different sectors. For example, we enjoy a relationship with USA because we are neighbors and we try to keep the advantages for us. Okay, one of the problems mentioned by the writer of this book is that we generalize the problem thinking that all the countries share the same problems. Big mistake. But each one has specific problems that must be treated each way. Well, actually, there are two main ways to break this poverty trap. One way is for government to borrow the funds it needs for public investment and then count on future economic growth to repair the loans. Basically, they are saying that they are going to borrow money from another place and then they are going to try to pay the debts that they got. Well, the second way is for foreign governments, business, foundation, international institutions to provide temporary assistance to finance the urgent needs. One example of this could be USA right after the World War II. In the World War II, after the World War II, the United States starts to help a lot of places that they got broke or they got a lot of damages. This could be an example of that. Finally, I consider that we need to analyze 3 specific points that I think that they are very important to prevent the poverty traps. The first one is education. The second one is healthcare. And the third, but not least, is focus on your financial choices. Those points, specifically those points, are very important to prevent yourself to fall on those traps, on those poverty traps, basically. I think that will be all for our part.
The fourth category on the poverty diagnostic checklist says that poverty might be the result of some aspects of physical geography. But how does a country's environment, climate, and position influence its economic development? First, latitude is important because in general countries located in temperate areas are considerably richer than tropical ones. This occurs in countries with large expanses like the United States and the difference between the northern temperate states like New York. The main reasons for the poverty of tropical countries compared to the temperate ones are two: their lower agricultural and productivity and their biggest health problems. The first is because the crops are lower, because the fertility and depth of the soils is scarce and the soils are superficial and sterile. The second reason is directly related to the wide variety of species and consequently also pathogens that inhabit these latitudes, which end up damaging crops, cause disease among their inhabitants, and ultimately end up reducing the life expectancy of the population. Another geographical factor that causes poverty is the lack of access to the sea, as it is much cheaper to transport goods by sea than by road or air. So large continental countries are at disadvantage over cities that are close to coasts or rivers. Another important factor of physical geography is carbon reserves, as they are the most widely used source of energy in the world. Countries that have the advantage of owning these reserves have higher economic growth. However, countries that do not have it can grow by exporting it or taking advantage to another economical resources.
Now I will talk about fossil fuel map. In this map, which is the largest country now? Saudi Arabia, which is massive reserve of petroleum, is the center of this map. And other countries, of course, for example, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, and Venezuela. We can see that the great economies of the great countries become small in this map. It's not important, and for example, United States is small, and Saudi Arabia is so large. Currently exists massive corruption in the conflicts between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and how to Iran supplies Venezuela, and United States put sanctions and more conflict too about the oil. Another important aspect is the climate. If you understand the climate, you know about a huge effect of crop productivity and disease, water scarcity. It's very important to understand the climate because you can see if population sustained by agriculture and tourism, migration, etc. The climate is a decisive factor of development countries. The climate is very important if you understand the climate to see if a population can be sustained through agriculture, migration, tourism, etc. And if countries with tropical climate take some disease, for example, malaria. Malaria is a disease that's transmitted by mosquitoes. Mosquitoes bite the human and the body is infected. When the mosquitoes bite you and bite other person has the same virus. Malaria is located in dirty water and poor countries. It is sad because many people die. Only imagine husband and wives have a large number of children because they have fear that many will die, and it's a consequence is that often have more children they can support with some nutrition, healthcare, good education, and use methods to control malaria, for example, public health